Good evening there, everybody. What is happening? Hopefully, y'all are having a wonderful day today. So, when it comes down to it, I thought, of course, that I would talk about this video that I thought would be very particularly interesting. And this is going to be a video, I believe, by the boxing channel known as AKHi TV. And AKHi TV, I like to review him every once in a while, but not not quite as often as what I once did. Because AKHi TV, when you talk about any other LDBC new media channel, he might be the most he might be the most dim-witted channel that I've personally seen out of any other channel out there, especially from the LDBC and new media. But anyways, AKHi TV, of course, especially ever since the Oleksandr Usyk versus Tyson Fury match, and of course the results. For those of you, of course, that did not know, Oleksandr Usyk was able to pull out victorious, I believe, by that of a split decision by that of Mr. Tyson Fury. Now, the fight overall, I did predict Tyson Fury to win. I thought that he was going to be a little bit more impressive than what he was. I thought that at the very least that Tyson Fury was going to be the more active of the two fighters. I thought that he was going to kind of, eventually get on that of Oleksandr Usyk. But in my view, Tyson Fury just gave Oleksandr Usyk way too much time. And I'm not really surprised that in some of those rounds that Usyk that he outthrew Tyson Fury, because Usyk, of course, is a guy that's naturally busier than that of a Tyson Fury. Fury doesn't throw as much as what an Oleksandr Usyk does, kind of like that of a Vasily Lomachenko. What their main type of style is to kind of break you down over time, even though they kind of can fight within a multitude of ways. But I was just surprised that within the first few rounds about how stagnant Tyson Fury really was in terms of just his pure offense. I mean, Tyson Fury, in my view, I don't really know what his game plan was, but in my view, to really stay as far back as what he did and not throw anywhere near enough to win at least those some of those rounds for certain, in my view, it was just very poor game planning. I mean, I don't know why you would do that against a fighter to where clearly he's going to be quicker than you. He's going to be a guy that's going to be looking to get on the inside, and he's going to be a guy that, even though Fury may not want to admit it, that's going to be more defensively responsible than you. I just I don't really understand why Tyson Fury, why he would kind of just sit back and wait for Oleksandr Usyk, to really just come at him. But it is what it is. Sometimes it just ends up happening. Of course, he can possibly learn from those mistakes, but I'm not quite sure if I would favor Fury to win the rematch against Oleksandr Usyk. We'll see what happens. But the reason why I wanted to review this video is because AKHi TV is going to go back to the time where Shakur Stevenson, of course, was talking about Tyson Fury allegedly beating that of Muhammad Ali, at least in a fantasy fight. And Shakur Stevenson, this of course happened, I believe, probably maybe a couple of years ago. I can't remember exactly when this ended up happening, but the LDBC and new media and the pro black cult has been on Shakur Stevenson's ass ever since this happened. And a lot of you, of course, would probably agree with AKHi TV, where they would say, or a lot of you would say, well, to say that Tyson Fury would beat that of Muhammad Ali is absolutely absurd. Muhammad Ali is probably the greatest heavyweight of all time, in a lot of our minds, the greatest fighter of all time. How would Tyson Fury, who just recently lost to Oleksandr Usyk, how would he even stand a chance against Muhammad Ali? Well, at the end of the day, keep in mind that Tyson Fury was undefeated and coming off of some decent wins in his career over that of Deontay the Bronze Bomber Wilder. And AKHi TV, once again, I don't really mind him stating that I think it's a little bit too early to state that Fury would beat someone like a Muhammad Ali. I don't really mind that. But the thing is about AKHi TV and Dante's Boxing Nation and Boxing Eagle and a lot of these other guys in the LDBC and new media channels, the thing is that you recognize about them is that they didn't really care overall that it was once again about disrespecting a quote unquote old fighter and saying, hey, you know what, we need to see that Tyson Fury, we need to see what he accomplishes a little bit later on. It was purely the fact that once again, this really shows their motivations throughout the whole entire happening. And there's a reason, once again, why they were so little talking about this fight between that of Oleksandr Usyk and Tyson Fury, because once again, they were hoping that Tyson Fury was going to lose this match, but it really didn't matter because had Oleksandr Usyk won this fight, there was going to be a great debate for him being the number one pound for pound fighter. And you notice that a lot of these guys, that there's been no videos about Oleksandr Usyk's success. It's all been about Tyson Fury's failure because they don't give a shit that Oleksandr Usyk ended up winning this fight. They realize that Oleksandr Usyk, that him winning this fight, that it could potentially mean that he is the number one pound for pound fighter in the world. And you notice that they're not even talking about it because once again, they don't care about Oleksandr Usyk whatsoever. They didn't care about this fight. That's why Boxing Ego, that's why Dante's Boxing Nation, AKHi TV, they did no videos promoting that fight whatsoever because they didn't care about it. They only cared about Jared Anderson. They only cared about Deontay Wilder. They only cared about if they thought that Tyson Fury or Oleksandr Usyk could get potentially exposed. And then eventually, when one of those two fighters, when it was in a fight to test who was the best heavyweight in the world, they had no interest. Because why would they have an interest in two Caucasian fighters being debated as some of the greatest fighters within history? And that really is the major problem that they have. The LDBC and new media, once again, they're a lot like the liberal side of politics. Whereas old media, they're a lot like the conservative side of politics. The LDBC and new media, they'll tell you all this stuff about, how you're being victimized or black fighters are being victimized overall in certain areas. And a lot of the times they can be. A lot of the times they can be the victims, of certain double standards and unfair treatment. That's very true. But they go a little bit too overboard with it to the point to where they start to strip away credit and they get a little bit too crazy and they get a little bit overall too much of a psychosis about not giving credit now to other fighters, especially fighters that they need to try to tear down that are non-black American fighters such as Tyson Fury, Oleksandr Usyk, Vasily Lomachenko, Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez. But you notice that these same standards do not apply to that of Terrence Crawford and some of these other guys. So I just thought that I would do this video because the question now is going to have to be asked, depending, of course, how the rematch goes. How great is Mr. Oleksandr Usyk? Because Oleksandr Usyk right now, not only is he going to have to be counted as one of the greater cruiserweights of all time, but he's also going to have to be counted as one of the greatest heavyweights of all time. He's the only person that of his stature was able to not only completely dominate the cruiserweight division, but he was able to pretty much completely dominate the heavyweight division. I mean, I wouldn't say that he was able to absolutely dominate Tyson Fury. I would say that, Tyson Fury at the very least probably won about 5 rounds. Maybe you could give him 6. But, at the end of the day, still for Fury's size advantage, Fury should have really not been able to even be that close in the first place. Fury should have won this fight, overall, probably a good, at the very least, 8 rounds to 4. So Fury, if he is going to win the rematch, and if his career is going to be looked at once again as great as what it was before, he's going to have to really make some adjustments within the Oleksandr Usyk fight, and in my view, really try to put the pressure and the hurt on Oleksandr Usyk throughout the majority of the match and not just stare at him, in my view, throughout some of those rounds. That's not going to work. Oleksandr Usyk wants you to do that. That's going to set the pace for him. You can't do that against certain fighters like Gennady Golovkin or Lomachenko or that overall of an Oleksandr Usyk. You have to start off against round 1 against those guys. Just like what Teofimo Lopez did against Lomachenko. He started immediately hitting Lomachenko with uppercuts to the body and right hands to the face. And he said, nope, you're not going to come in. You're not going to come in with those regular angles and just break me down. You're going to have to work to get inside here. And even if you get a couple shots off, you're going to get hit with a punch that's going to hurt. And, you might potentially get knocked down or you might potentially get hurt. And Fury was fighting the right fight within, I believe, about rounds 4 to 7. But then, of course, in round 8, he pretty much had lost a bunch of his stamina and lost a bunch of his oomph. So once again, Fury is going to have to be even better in the rematch. Can he do that? We'll see. And if Fury does make adjustments, what is Usyk going to be able to do? We'll see. Because in my view, Usyk was not adjusting very well to once Tyson Fury was throwing those body shots. But let me give Usyk credit because he didn't take the Vasily Lomachenko route to where he just once again didn't throw anything within the first few rounds because he was very tentative to throw overall and then, made excuses later on to why he ended up losing the fight because he didn't start fighting until about round 8 or round 9. So let me give Oleksandr Usyk a lot of credit because he could have made the same mistake that Vasily Lomachenko did. But the question is once again about Mr. Oleksandr Usyk. Where is he now ranked within the history of boxing? And if this ends up being a trilogy, and whoever ends up winning the trilogy, where will these guys be ranked in terms of the history of boxing? We'll see. But anyways, let's get into it. Let's see what Mr. AKHi TV has to say.
Hey, I'm about to say something that's gonna make y'all mad. Tyson Fury will beat Muhammad Ali. Yes, I'm dead ass. Bro, he is 6'9". Ali is like 220, bro. Y'all right, I'm supposed to stick with my people, bro. I gotta be a realist, bro. Tyson Fury is 6'9", 300 pounds.
Well, listen, this is the thing overall that I'm going to say really quickly. And Shakur Stevenson said that last little part right there because he said, I know y'all are right that I have to stick with my people. The reason why Shakur Stevenson is saying that is because there's so many sensitive pro-blacks out there when it comes down to it, or so many sensitive people, no matter the demographic, to where if you end up going against them when it comes down to it, then they're basically going to throw a hissy fit, and they're going to say that you're a traitor or a sellout or a coon.
Bro, I stand with my people too, but I'm just saying the real, bro.
Well, listen, what I'm going to state is this. Whenever we give an analyzation, if your first thought is that I have to stick with my people, then then just in my personal preference, don't even bother giving the analyzation. Because if we're talking about a sports debate, and if we're debating, let's say, a conversation between Shaquille O'Neal and Larry Bird, and your first conversation is that, well, I have to stick with my people, then what you're telling me is that you already have a bias and that you already have a reason to give an extra point overall to that person in the first place. When you have an objective and logical debate, you're not supposed to head into the debate, at least overall, if it's logical and objective. You're not supposed to head into that debate already stating, okay, I need to give this guy extra points in order to win this debate. That's not how an actual logical and objective debate works, but that's how it works overall for a lot of these guys in their mind.
Bro, he's a cheat code, bro. Only way to beat him, you knock him out, bro. That's the only way to beat him. But all I'm saying is, I just feel like Tyson Fury get matched against Usyk right now or Joshua right now. We all know what's gonna happen.
No, we can't judge by.
And let me tell you what. A couple of years ago, I also thought that Fury was going to outbox Usyk at least a good 8 rounds to 4. This is why fights need to happen, because you never know why. And this is why I said that, the LDBC and new media, they were always trying to push Terrence Bud Crawford as the #1 pound per pound. But even they knew that they didn't really have the best of arguments for it, because they would always try to shove it down your throat, but it would never be something that they could really show with super great data. So they would always tell you this shit about how Crawford was allegedly willing to fight everybody, even though he never went over to the PBC. So they would always have to make some sort of bullshit excuse for him and try to hype up his opponents to be 10 times better than what they ever actually were. So it is what it is. But isn't it very interesting, once again, that there's been no videos from these guys claiming that Usyk now has to be remembered as one of the greatest fighters of all time? And where does this place him within overall the conversations of the greatest of all time in terms of the GOATs of the sport, and also in terms of heavyweight and cruiserweight history? There's no videos about it. But Terrence Bud Crawford got that victory over Errol Spence Jr. and probably has, maybe, if he's lucky, 3 other A-grade wins in his career. And all we hear about now is that Terrence Bud Crawford is now definitively, not even debatably, definitively a top 5 to top 10 fighter of all time. That's what we hear. None of these conversations happen with Canelo or Usyk or any other fighter that overall that they don't want to promote in a way as well. In a way, recently, once again, what has he done lately? Now, you can state that it's not over always the greatest of competition, but at the end of the day, it hasn't been for Crawford either. But what does Inoue have to do now that he's a 4-weight division champion? Oh, well, Inoue will have to continue taking on more challenges, because that's what the other all-time greats did. Isn't that interesting? But Crawford, even though that Errol Spence Jr. win is probably the only ever debatable top 10 pound for pound win that he ever got, that now he's definitely definitively top 5 to top 10 of all time. So once again, it goes to show you their true motivations. What the LDBC and new media are, they're a lot like the LeBron James fans. When it comes to LeBron James fans, what they love to do is that whenever he does something great in his career, they love to state all this stuff about how LeBron James, about how great he is, and this moves him up the totem pole, and, this is something else to add to his resume. But then every time LeBron James loses or something bad happens in his career, he gets none of the blame. So basically what the LDBC and new media are doing, every single time there's a fighter like a Usyk or an Inoue or a Fury or a, Canelo or someone like that, clearly someone who's all-time great when it comes down to it, or deserves to be mentioned on the great level, at least for the current moment in time, they always find a way to detract from them. But then when it comes overall to certain, even if they have a great resume or a great, body of work, but then when it comes to certain fighters that they need to promote highly, like Crawford, or when it comes to that of Deontay Wilder or some of these other guys, even if they really haven't fought anybody that much, they're already considered all-time greats and first ballot Hall of Famers. So that's all the LDBC and new media is. They'll try to tell you that they're about objectivity and logic. They're not. All they are is the liberal side of things whenever it comes to that of boxing. They're the pro-black cult version, once again, of old media. That's all they are.
That can't judge by that, because everybody thought George Foreman was going to beat Muhammad Ali. He got to do it, though. He got to do it. It's hypothetical. He got to prove it. He got to actually.
I agree with that, and you can't base an argument off of hypotheticals.
Greatest right there.
Huh?
That makes him one of the greatest to me. If you
I got
ask
one. All right, one off, but he's down the line. He's down the line.
I can't say he's the greatest. I'm just saying, if you match him against anybody, who do you pick to beat Tyson Fury?
It don't work that way, though. It don't work that way. It's like Tyson. You got to understand. Holyfield fought everybody. Lennox Lewis fought everybody. Muhammad Ali fought everybody. You got to do that first.
I don't think there's no fight.
Well, let me also state this, because a lot of people love to hide behind this fucking excuse, and I've seen this recently with Canelo Alvarez as well, where Boxing Ego and a lot of these other LDBC and new media channels like AKHi TV and Dante's Boxing Nation, where they'll kind of state this as well, and they'll go with this argument of, oh, well, you know, Canelo can never be on the same level as these guys because Canelo picked and chose opponents. Right, but if you ask Boxing Ego and a lot of these other guys, Barrera and Morales and Marquez, apparently they cherry-picked opponents too sometimes, or didn't fight certain guys that maybe they could have. So it's like, what really is the major difference? The thing is that you clearly just don't want Canelo Alvarez to be up on a higher level than those guys, because if he is, he's going to be in the conversation with the top 20 to top 10 all-time greats of all time. So it's like, let's stop bullshitting here.
It's out there for him.
Well, he got, all those top guys. Joseph Parker, Frank Sanchez, Usyk. He got to fight Usyk. He got to fight Usyk.
Oh, my God.
You got to fight Usyk. It don't matter if you think he going to win.
That's Shakur Stevenson justifying why he said Fury beats Ali by saying that Fury beats anyone in history, let alone Usyk. Shakur went as far as saying he don't even have to see the fight. Fury doesn't even have to fight Usyk because we already know the results. Due to that.
Well, I do agree with that in my view that also is not the best way of thinking whenever it comes to a debate, because once again, you just never know. And this is exactly the reason overall, once again, why we always have to know, because people always love to say this stuff overall about, you know, oh, well, we already know what's going to happen with that fight. You never know what's going to happen with the fight. You never know what's going to happen with the fight, or really with the sporting event in general. Because if we go overall, if we were just to state things to say, well, you know what, we're just going to give them the victory because, you know, we already know what's going to happen. Let's just say if sports work that way, the 2011 Dallas Mavericks, they would have lost to the Miami Heat. You know, the 2007 New England Patriots, I believe it was that year, they would have beat that of the New York Giants, you know, or Muhammad Ali would have beat George Foreman, you know, or excuse me, George Foreman would have beat Muhammad Ali. You know, Sonny Liston would have beat Muhammad Ali. So you always have to take a look and see what the results are going to be.
Fury has the privilege to not even having to prove himself by fighting the top guys in his division, according to Shakur. All the fighters have to prove themselves, not by talking, but more so by action.
Agreed. And you should have kept that same energy with that of Mr. Terrence Bud Crawford when he really didn't fight anybody throughout his whole entire career. Remember also when these guys were claiming that Deontay Wilder was a top 10 heavyweight of all time by facing literally nobody? I mean, at least with Tyson Fury, when it comes down to it, we can at least maybe somewhat claim, even after the Usyk loss, that maybe he's right there with Riddick Bowe, and maybe he's right there with some of the other guys, because at least Fury has beaten some of the top guys of his day. Like, at least he beat Dillian White and Wilder and Klitschko dominantly. At least he beat some of those guys. And on top of that, Aldo Von Leen, like, who the fuck, like, who did Deontay Wilder ever beat? Like, the man fought literally really, to be quite honest with you, 2 championship caliber fighters throughout his whole entire career, and he got completely embarrassed against 2 of them. Like, it's like, no offense against Deontay, but it's like, people are calling Fury the most overrated heavyweight of this era now after this loss. No, the most overrated heavyweight of this era is Deontay Wilder. And to be honest with you, I'm not really quite sure if it's close.
Except of Fury, according to Shakur, because we already know the results against anybody Fury fights.
And the question is about Deontay Wilder is that, where does he really stand in terms of history now? Because at least before, you know, when he only had lost to Tyson Fury, it's like, okay, at least he can be debated as the second or the third best heavyweight of his era. But it's like, where does he go now? Because is he really? I mean, he's definitely not on the Tyson Fury level. You know, he's definitely not on the Oleksandr Usyk level. So the question is he on the Anthony Joshua level? Probably not, because AJ won more belts throughout his career and he has a way better resume. And on top of that, he's a little bit more skilled than Deontay Wilder, or more skilled than Deontay Wilder. So is he on the same level as Andrew Ruiz? I mean, to be honest with you, that's a debate. Andrew Ruiz ended up defeating the guy that Wilder probably beat against Luis Ortiz. That was the best, fighter that he ever defeated in my view. Of course, Ortiz was older, against Andrew Ruiz, but to be honest, Ortiz was old when he fought Wilder. So I, I don't know, but of course also when it comes down to it, Ortiz was undefeated when Wilder had first fought him. Then of course you have Joseph Parker, who also won a belt and then defeated Wilder. It's like, where does Wilder really stand in terms of heavyweight history? I'm not really actually sure.
And that's why he said Fury beats Ali, since Fury is a cheat code. Size does matter to Shakur. He believes
Well, of course, size does matter, but this is also another reason why the LDBC and new media, why they're also on Fury's ass so hard, because whenever a loss ends up happening with a certain fighter or with a certain athlete, it's best overall to promote your delusions of grandeur overall at that time, because that's when that fighter is at their potential weakest. See, they had to kind of stop this shit for a very long time because Fury was on a good slide, and all the narratives that they were trying to promote about him, they were going to the wayside. But now that Fury had lost to that of Oleksandr Usyk, now they can now promote all their stuff about, see, the only reason why Fury was good in the first place is because he had the privilege of robbing Francis Ngannou and robbing Deontay Wilder of those wins. So that's the bullshit that they're gonna try to tell you, which of course is a bunch of horse shit. Especially when it comes to the Deontay Wilder situation. Wilder got his ass whooped. It is what it is. There was never any actual data or any actual evidence to ever prove that Tyson Fury was cheating in those fights. Period.
Fury's size is such an advantage that he will pick him to beat anyone in history due to his size advantage along with his skill set combined. That's why he said Fury beats Ali comfortably. Muhammad Ali is too small, Shakur said. Well, ironically, Fury ended up getting beat by a fighter that's even smaller than Muhammad Ali.
I'm not quite sure if Oleksandr Usyk actually is smaller than Muhammad Ali. I think Usyk actually is about the same size as Muhammad Ali. I think that both Usyk and Muhammad Ali had about a 78-inch arm reach. I think that they were both exactly 6'3". I think that they were both around 220, maybe 230 pounds. To be quite honest with you, I think that Usyk actually was was the exact same size as Muhammad Ali. And, to be honest with you, if we're going to go there, I mean, at least if we want to just debate, skill for skill, Usyk is probably more skilled than what Muhammad Ali was. And a lot of people overall are going to, of course, crucify me for saying that. But at the end of the day, if we're going to do this thing where, we don't count in eras and we only want to count in, the stuff about, let's just compare the fighters day per day. Well, if you want to go by that, Usyk, to be quite honest with you, he was a much better defensive fighter than what Muhammad Ali actually was. And a lot of people are going to completely disagree with that, but there's a reason why Muhammad Ali, against the first time against Joe Frazier, why he got hit with so many left hooks and eventually downed in that fight against Joe Frazier, which ended up costing him the fight. There's a reason why he ended up losing, one fight, if not potentially even more fights, I believe, overall to that of that one dude. Can't remember, Ken Norton, I believe his name was. And then ended up losing some other fights. Remember, Muhammad Ali ended up losing to a guy that was 8-0 in Leon Spinks, that was not remembered as a great fighter. So that's why I say, so let's see also where Tyson Fury goes. Right now, of course, the argument has been a little bit stalled, but of course, if he can get in a rematch with Oleksandr Usyk and beat him, his career will once again be looked at on a great trajectory. That's why I'm not really too quick, once again, to criticize Tyson Fury's career, but he should have been able to win this fight, no doubt about it. He should have been able to win this fight. Fury, in my view, did not put on the best performance, in my view. I did not think that the game plan was very good. And on top of that, the flaws that he did had showed out a little bit. But part of the reason why the flaws showed out a little bit more is because Tyson Fury just allowed way too many opportunities for Oleksandr Usyk. You don't allow overall a fighter, once again, that loves to put on the pressure like that. You don't allow them to get that many opportunities. Anytime that you have a fighter like that likes to put on the pressure like that, you always have to try to put that shit in his place. You always have to try to put that at a halt. Whether it's Canelo against Gennady Golovkin, or Teofimo Lopez or Devin Haney against Vasily Lomachenko, or other fighters, against other pressure fighters. Like, you have to stop that, and kind of what Fury did against that of Deontay Wilder. But Usyk is a different animal than that of Deontay Wilder. He's multidimensional. He's a guy that also has excellent movement, excellent defense, other than that, of course, to the midsection. But other than that, Oleksandr Usyk, he's an exceptional fighter. So I just thought that Fury fought the wrong fight. I think that he tried to play the jab game a little bit with him too much, which probably tired him out. And I think that Fury in a rematch, he's gonna have to let his hands go a little bit more. I think that he cannot be afraid to go to the body with Usyk and really try to rough him up. That's what you're gonna have to do to win that fight. You can't you can't try to outbox Usyk in the middle of the ring the whole entire time when he's faster than you and more defensively responsible than you. It's not gonna happen. Fury is going to have to brawl with Usyk. He's also going to have to get on him sometimes and hug him and really try to turn him into the ropes and really use your weight. I never understood why Tyson Fury in that fight, when he was holding Oleksandr Usyk, like it didn't seem like he was trying to use his body size at all. Like it looked like he was just holding him, then waiting for the clinch to get, done with. I mean, to me that was a little bit confusing. Maybe Fury just felt that Usyk was a bit too fast, but I don't know. To be honest, it didn't look like that. It just looked like Tyson Fury, for whatever reason, that he wasn't doing some of the things that he was supposed to do. Or maybe he just doesn't have the same stamina anymore. I'm not quite sure. And I'm not trying to make excuses, but I'm not really quite sure, in my view, why Fury, in my view, didn't really have that great of a game plan within this fight. I don't think that the game plan was the best, in my view, except for about 4 total rounds. Then other than that, to be honest with you, I thought that the game plan was very poor.
Cruiserweight who moved up to heavyweight. In fact, a fighter who Tyson Fury himself calls a middleweight in Usyk. Another fighter that Shakur Stevenson said Fury will be so easy to the point where Shakur didn't even want to see the fight. It was a foregone conclusion that Fury beats Usyk in Shakur's mind to the point where Fury doesn't have to prove himself anymore. He just automatically gets the credit for beating everyone and anyone due to imaginations and opinions, according to Shakur. Now, the problem.
Right, I don't mind what you're stating here, Mr. AKHi TV, because I tend to agree with you. But once again, let's keep the same energy, sir. Because you said the same exact thing with Terrence Bud Crawford years ago about Crawford would beat all the guys at the PBC and none of those guys want to fight him. And, oh, Crawford allegedly wants to fight all those guys. And then when he said that he didn't want to fight Sean Porter, all you did was make excuses for him. So once again, I don't mind you going by this, but let's keep the same standards. But part of the reason, once again, why I like to review these videos is because AKHi TV and a lot of these guys, they're so full of shit.
Problem is not Shakur saying that Fury beats everyone. The problem was.
The problem is, at least in your view, is that Shakur Stevenson sold out his people. That's the reason overall. That's the reason why you're really bitching AKHi TV. Let's stop, because you're trying to get brownie points overall by your black fan base. With your wigger white boy attitude. Look at me. Look at how black I can try to be so I can relate with you guys, because us Muslims and us African Americans and blacks, we're so discriminated against. Let's all get in the victim circle together and give each other a hug. And then bitch, moan, and complain about why our lives are not getting any better. Anyways, when it comes down to it, which, by the way, is not really what the real Muslims have actually done. The Muslims actually have done a very good job in creating, overall their own great non-victimization culture. That's why they're very successful. But anyways, when it comes down to the overall, AKHi TV is another guy, overall, once again, that loves to go by this liberal victimization mentality bullshit. And once again, the victimization mentality, don't get it twisted. I'm not stating that, once again, at times you should not realize when you're a victim of something. But if you stay in that victimization mentality the whole entire time, all it's going to do is bring you down. And that's why AKHi TV, he had such a problem with what Shakur Stevenson stated. It wasn't necessarily the fact that he said that, oh, well, Tyson Fury has to prove himself a little bit more. Yes, of course, that's a part of it. But the thing is about AKHi TV is that Fury could defeat, within his next several fights, all the best fighters of his generation. It doesn't matter. He's not going to put Fury there anyway, because he can't stand Tyson Fury. He can't stand him with a burning passion. And he doesn't like Oleksandr Usyk much better either. That's why in that Daniel Dubois fight, they said that Usyk robbed that of Daniel Dubois. Because they don't want any of those fighters being in the top 10 or top 20 of all time. That's their main objective. And I keep telling people this. That's why every time, once again, there's a Canelo Alvarez, every time there's a Fury, every time there's a Usyk, they always go after those guys. And they always have to do 10 times the amount of work as what their favorite black fighters have to do. Once again, that's why Crawford already, in their view, is a top 10 fighter of all time. Where's Usyk? Where's Canelo? You won't find them in those conversations when it comes to those guys. Or in a way, you won't find them.
Shakur was giving Fury credit as if he already beat everyone, as if he already proved it, because he was saying Fury doesn't even have to prove nothing. I mean, what kind of nonsense privilege is that? Every fighter in history have to get in the ring and prove themselves. That's the whole point of fighting.
Agreed. So why was Terrence Bud Crawford, in your view, ranked number one pound for pound when he hadn't fought anything but scraps? Once again, I don't mind this energy because I completely agree with it, but let's keep the same standards across the board. And I'm not stating that in my view that overall that what Shakur said, at least in terms of Tyson Fury, that, oh, you guys are crazy if you think that, those guys beat him. Well, listen, at the end of the day, you're going to have to prove something. I don't care what what people say. At the end of the day, you can only be so great if you're not winning. It is what it is. Once again, I like to call this the Anthony Davis or the Mike Tyson effect, or the Aaron Rodgers effect, where a lot of people will state, well, oh, it's clearly crazy to state that, he won't win it this year. And then what ends up happening? Rodgers never even makes another Super Bowl. He's ranked the number one quarterback every single goddamn year, especially in terms of statistics. And then he never even makes a second Super Bowl appearance, makes Lambeau Field multiple times, then fucks it up in the playoffs almost every single year. All right, when it comes down to it. What happens with Anthony Davis? Can never even make it past the second round, only makes the playoffs twice with that of the New Orleans Pelicans within a series of 7 and 9 years, which is absolutely pathetic. And then he goes to the LA Lakers, has to be with LeBron James in order to even win one championship in the bubble championship. All right, Mike Tyson, what ends up happening with him, super great talent, never won a big A-grade fight in his career. So once again, yes, I agree completely that you have to prove yourself, but let's keep the same standards across the board.
Talking means nothing. Opinions mean nothing. You have to go in the ring and fight to prove that you are the better fighter, so we know that for a fact. Fury versus Usyk is a pure example of that. So now Shakur is forced to eat his own words for saying that Fury beats Ali. And Fury beats Usyk to the point where Shakur said he doesn't even have to fight him. He doesn't even have to prove it. He's too big for these guys. So let's just give Fury the credit for beating them anyways, even if he doesn't. Well, now Usyk beat Tyson Fury, the middle.
And you see overall, once again, in the background, what they're all posting about Tyson Fury, like that one, alleged failed drug test all the way back during that year. And I'm not sure if it was ever conclusive whether Tyson Fury was guilty of that or not. But once again, what are they really trying to propose about Tyson Fury? That Tyson Fury is a fraud. And a lot of you might state, well, I personally believe that Fury is overrated as well. Because I had a bunch of people in my comment section telling me that they thought Fury was overrated, blah, blah, blah. When it came down to it, listen, at the end of the day, what some people are not realizing is that this is not only their way of discrediting Tyson Fury, this is also their way of stating that Usyk, you really didn't beat anybody in your career, that was really that great. So we're not going to put you on the all-time great level. So not only is this to minimize the accomplishments of Tyson Fury, it's also to minimize the accomplishments of Oleksandr Usyk. Once again, where are the conversations? Where are the videos about where is Oleksandr Usyk of all time? Is there one video that these guys have made so far about Oleksandr Usyk needs to be counted greater than certain fighters, like Evander Holyfield, where Usyk now has to be counted as greater than Evander Holyfield? There hasn't been one.
Wait, Usyk did what Shakur said couldn't be done. It didn't even take a Muhammad Ali to beat Tyson Fury. Forget about bringing.
You see that? When it comes so what is AKHi TV saying? What is he saying right there? He said it didn't even take a Muhammad Ali to beat that of Tyson Fury. What is he saying? Usyk is not a Muhammad Ali. That's what he's stating. That Usyk is not on the all-time great level. That's what he's stating. He's stating that Oleksandr Usyk cannot be within the top 10 to top 20 pound for pound of all time. Once again, once you realize that these guys is bullshit, it's very easy to read them. All right? So once again, what is he trying to state? And some of you may agree with that. Some of you may say, well, personally, I don't think that Usyk is on the Muhammad Ali level because he doesn't have quite the big enough wins. And I would probably agree with that. But once again, very interesting how AKHi TV has Terrence Bud Crawford immediately within his top 5 to top 10 fighters of all time. So that means that Crawford is then apparently on the Muhammad Ali level, even though he doesn't have the resume of an Ali, nowhere near a Mayweather or a Pacquiao. Now, if you were to ask AKHi TV, well, who do you think would win in their prime between Terrence Bud Crawford and Manny Pacquiao? Who do you think would win prime v prime? Who do you think AKHi TV would say? He would probably say Terrence Bud Crawford. And then overall, what certain people say, oh well, that's just ridiculous because overall, who does Crawford have on his resume? Does he have the amount of wins and on his resume like Cotto and Barrera and Morales, and Timothy Bradley and all that? Like they would never say that. Because first of all, when you talk about a fantasy matchup, it's not it's not always about who the greater fighter is. It's about who would win the fight. And that's how you know that Shakur, he didn't say that Fury was greater than Muhammad Ali. He just said that he would favor Tyson Fury in a fight over Muhammad Ali because of his combined skill set and size, which is not something overall once again that is really too far out of the ordinary. But because so many people once again get their panties in a twist, and these guys especially because they have such racial motivations, it just goes to show you what they're truly about.
Muhammad Ali from the grave to beat Tyson Fury. Man, Francis Ngannou really beat Tyson Fury and got.
No, he didn't, but you're going to use that narrative once again because, once again, anytime there's a fighter overall that you need to try to tear down, you're going to try to tear them down to the max. All right? That's why you used the same narrative with Oleksandr Usyk about he really got beat by Daniel Dubois. Just come on, man.
Rob. Francis.
But then when it came to Jamel Charlo, versus Brian Castano, Jamel Charlo, it was fine with the draw. Wilder versus Fury, it was fine with the draw. Whenever it comes to other fighters that, he needs to promote highly, then all of a sudden it's okay with the draw. But then when it comes to fighters that he needs to tear down, they rob that other fighter. Like, get the hell out of here.
Ngannou, who has 0 fights in the sport of boxing as an amateur and a pro, dropped Tyson Fury and beat Tyson Fury. Now
Well, no, he didn't beat Tyson Fury. Otherwise, he would have got the decision. And, once again, now, if you want to debate that, you thought that Ngannou won that fight, that's up to you. In my view, Fury won the fight by 1 point. Now, should have been anywhere near that bad? No, it shouldn't have. But at the end of the day, Fury did just end up winning that fight. But once again, it just goes to show you that how how full of shit that these guys actually are and how scummy these guys actually are because they'll use anything that they can in terms of their arguments. They won't ever keep the same standards.
the way Usyk got the job done on the scorecards, I mean, to be honest, you can even say Usyk knocked out Tyson Fury and he was saved by the referee. Either way, Shakur.
And very interesting, did they keep the same standards with Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz? Did they say that with Deontay Wilder and Luis Ortiz? Now, don't get it twisted. Do I kind of agree that Tyson Fury, that the ref was a little bit giving to Tyson Fury in terms of not stopping the fight? Yeah, but at the end of the day, that's what you do in a championship level fight. You don't really stop a fight unless it absolutely has to be stopped, especially when the fight is going back and forth and it's relatively close. And at that time, that fight was relatively close. So you don't stop that fight unless you absolutely have to. Because if there ends up being a knockout, then that could kind of fuck up the money. And on top of that, that could ruin possibly a great trilogy or something like that. So that's why, once again, when it comes to a fight like that, you don't do that. Especially if it comes to possibly the A side. That's why Deontay Wilder, even though these guys will never talk about it, he was the recipient of the same privilege in the Luis Ortiz fight. Because Ortiz was beating that man's ass in one of those early rounds and damn near canned Deontay Wilder, but the fight wasn't stopped. In fact, it wasn't even counted as a knockdown. The reason why is because when you talk about a fight like that, you have to let that fight continue unless it's absolutely not necessary anymore. Now, if you talk about a Crawford versus Errol Spence Jr. situation, that's the time where you have to stop that fight because Spence was literally getting his ass kicked. Like, it was such a one-sided affair to where there was really no reason to continue that fight onwards anymore. And then Spence had already been knocked down 3 times in the fight. And then, finally he got hit with a good 1-2 in the 9th round. It was over.
Theory got debunked with nothing but facts. Facts always trump opinions. So I hope it was...
Well, unless it comes to facts that you don't want to accept.
...worth it for Shakur. The praise he gave to Tyson Fury at the expense of disrespecting the greatest of all time in the sport of boxing, Muhammad Ali, who did more...
Right, but it's not really disrespecting, once again, Muhammad Ali to state that you think that a certain fighter would beat them if they were to fight prime v prime. That's not really disrespecting somebody. What's disrespecting somebody is stating something that clearly is out of the ordinary or something that, to where you're clearly trying to disrespect their accomplishments. Like if I'm talking about Floyd Mayweather Jr. and I would state overall something like, well, to me, his accomplishments are really no greater than that of a Jaron Boots-Ennis. That's something that's disrespectful because Jaron Boots-Ennis is only a one-time champion and he has absolutely no resume. That's something that's disrespectful. But if I were to state that, say, you know what? If Jaron Boots-Ennis prime be prime, if he fought someone maybe like an Errol Spence Jr., I have a feeling that a Jaron Boots-Ennis, that he may possibly beat that of an Errol Spence Jr. I mean, you might disagree with that, and some of you might even state, well, listen, that's a little bit too soon. But that's not something that's really disrespectful. That's something overall that, once again, where you just believe that person would win one-on-one. Even if we take a look at other things, like if we take a look at basketball, if I take a look, and I say, well, you know what, Nikola Jokic, he's nowhere near as accomplished as Shaquille O'Neal, but a 1v1, I think that Jokic may be able to potentially win because Jokic, in my view, he's just all around a decent amount more skilled. That's not something that really is disrespectful. It's just something overall to where if you can quantify it, then you can kind of somewhat get it. Now, what would be a little bit disrespectful is that, Muhammad Ali, if we were going to compare him and say, well, you know what, Ali, he really is no better than that of a Deontay Wilder or a Joseph Parker. That would be something that's disrespectful because Ali has a lot more accomplishments on his resume than that. That would be something that's disrespectful. Not stating that they believe that Fury, who's one of the best heavyweights of his era, someone that's 6'9", and has a decent all-around skill set, weighs 280 pounds, sometimes at his heaviest, that overall that him beating a guy that's 6'3", 220, 230 pounds, overall that's, something out of the realm of possibility. No, that was not disrespecting Muhammad Ali.
For his people than anyone has ever done in any sport. Let's get this straight. Before anyone, not just Shakur, but anybody, disrespects Muhammad Ali, do more for your culture than Muhammad Ali did. Do more for your people than Muhammad Ali did. This should be a law. If you want to disrespect the
And here goes AKHi TV trying to pull the pro-black angle, once again, to where you should be ashamed of yourself, that you should have took the Muhammad Ali route and stuck up for your people. Muhammad Ali was not some dude, overall, once again, that was a guy that just kowtowed overall to certain pro-blacks, necessities for himself. He was a part overall of an organization that really overall wanted to separate, from basically America because he was tired of getting treated overall like shit when it came down to it, as long as with his other people. And in my view, I personally agreed with him. I think that he was doing at least the right thing, at least for him. Does that mean that I agree with everything that was a part of that movement? No. But at the end of the day, I can kind of understand where he came from. And on top of that, Ali, he was in prison for his beliefs. So I actually give Ali a lot of credit for that. But, once again, Shakur Stevenson stating overall that he believes that this person, is going to win this fight over a black fighter. What does that really do for the black community? What does that really do overall for the black citizens and people overall than just feed into their inferiority complex? What does that really do for them?
or discredit the GOAT while he's not here to defend himself, at least do more for your people like Muhammad Ali.
So what AKHi TV and a lot of these guys, what they're basically trying to state is that if you don't kowtow to our demands, and if you don't do what we tell you to do, and if you don't say what we tell you to say, we're going to embarrass you. And we're going to make you seem like an Uncle Tom. That's what we're going to try to make you do. That's why every single time there's a compliment towards a Fury or an Usyk or a Canelo, they humiliate those guys. Every single time. Whether it be Devin Haney or Shakur or the Charlo brothers, or Gervonta Tank Davis. What do they always say? Well, you guys are sellouts. You guys are trying to clearly appease to the race fans. Which is just so unfortunate because you guys are trying to appease to these races. Those guys aren't trying to appease to those fucking races. Like, what are you talking about? Shakur Stevenson is the same exact dude that claimed that a lot of people overall don't like black fighters, or that a lot of Caucasians don't like black fighters, or that a lot of boxing fans don't like black fighters. Does that sound like in that Bob Arum is a racist and that Top Rank overall doesn't promote black fighters very well? Does that sound like someone that gives a fuck about what the Caucasian and the Mexican fan base thinks? Like, come on.
Then you could talk all you want. What people don't know, when Muhammad Ali was fighting in his prime, he was the most hated man on the planet. Now, after becoming the GOAT.
Yes, he was. Not only overall, because of the fighters that he beat, but also because of his organization that he stood for. Which not only separated him, I believe, from a lot of people, probably from, the other demographics, probably separated him also from a lot of black people as well, because a lot of them, I believe, also were not a fan of that, Nation of Islam, uh, uh, you know, uh, belief system, which personally I'm not either. Now, when it comes to Islam in general, when you talk about the Muslims, that's not something that I'm really completely against when it comes down to. But when you talk about the Nation of Islam, that that particular group, that was with the Kareem Abdul-Jabbar's and Muhammad Ali's and other guys like that. Yes, those guys were, those guys were a little bit more extreme and into shit overall. That probably would not be looked at as productive. But it is what it is.
And passing away. If you don't have nothing positive to say, if you're not going to be in support of Ali, then don't say nothing at all.
Right. So what is AKHi TV basically stating? See, what AKHi TV and Dante, what they always try to state, is that we were about the whole truth on this channel. We're about the whole truth and the whole objectivity and all this. But what did AKHi TV just tell you? That if you don't say what we want you to say, that if you're not in support of Muhammad Ali, shut the fuck up. That's basically what AKHi TV just told Shakur Stevenson. And once again, for those of you black boxing fans and for those of you African Americans or black fans overall watching this channel, this is what AKHi TV thinks about you. He doesn't want you to think individually. He doesn't want you to think objectively. And you may agree with a lot of the stuff that he's saying within this video, as do I. But once again, AKHi TV doesn't want you to think individually. He wants you to think like a puppet. He wants you to think like a liberalized puppet.
Why would you be negative toward Muhammad Ali? The GOAT him.
Right, so saying overall that a certain fighter, once again, that he would potentially beat him is negative towards Muhammad Ali. Once again, if AKHi TV or Dante's Boxing Nation, if they were to state that, overall that Terrence Bud Crawford would beat someone like a Manny Pacquiao, even though Pacquiao has a clearly better resume than Terrence Bud Crawford, would they ever state something along the lines of that's just completely disrespectful towards Manny Pacquiao, do better, for yourself? They wouldn't say that shit. Once again, that's why these channels cannot be trusted. All right. So that's why they cannot be trusted. All right. They have a complete, racial motivation type of system. All right.
Himself.
They follow the same teachings basically of a bunch of these crazy ass, liberal pro-black cult systems. It is what it is. They have the same teachings as the liberals do, which are basically just communists. When it comes down to, they have the same teachings exactly as those guys, that are the liberals. All right. Same exact overall mental teachings.
That actually proved that he is the GOAT. Unlike Fury, Muhammad Ali actually proved that he is the GOAT by fighting and beating.
I agree that he did. And that's why Fury, like I stated, if he ended up beating Oleksandr Usyk, he would have a conversation there in my view. But if he didn't, then he would have to be looked at again. So once again, so now Fury is at the point to where could he still maybe potentially be on the Muhammad Ali level? He could be if he beats Usyk in a rematch and then beats Anthony Joshua. But of course, he's going to have to make adjustments because Ali was able to make adjustments. He was able to make adjustments to beat Foreman. He was able to make adjustments to beat Frazier in the other two matches. He was able to make adjustments, well, somewhat controversially beat Ken Norton, I'm sure, in one of those matches. But excuse me, to still beat Ken Norton, Floyd Patterson.
Everyone. You see, that's why when Shakur said Fury beats Ali, it made zero sense for Shakur to say that. The timing made zero sense. Shakur was watching.
No, it didn't really make zero sense. But AKHi TV, once again, he has to try to promote you this spoonful of bullshit once again because he wants you guys to think like a puppet. And AKHi TV, don't get it twisted, he thinks that this is positive. He thinks that thinking overall basically like a stringed up puppet, that it's a positive because he believes that if you think like a stringed up puppet, that's support for your own people, that's support for the victims out there. And as long as we stick together and we all stay on code, Dante's Boxing Nation says the same thing. We all need to stay on code, and what does Dante mean by that? He says that we all need to think like a hive mind. That is not how you improve your life whatsoever. You have to be individual and logical and objective thinkers. Now, does that mean that you still do not come together as a group, and possibly as, people who are victims of something and, decide what to do? Of course not. Of course, it's great to, get along, with, your own demographic. Of course, that's a great thing. But that doesn't mean that you have to go along with the hive mind. Like for those of you that have ever watched, the Planet of the Apes movie, some of my favorite movies, especially the trilogy that I grew up with, with Andy Serkis, I believe, or Sarkis, whatever his name is, with Caesar, and the villain Koba, when it comes down to it. A lot of people overall had a hive mind once Koba eventually started to gain into power, to where they weren't able to speak up against, some some of the fatalities that he eventually brought to the group because of his tyrannism.
Fury knock out Dillian White when he made that comment. A fighter who had already been knocked out twice with that same punch, that uppercut.
Right, well, you weren't saying that shit when you thought that Tyson Fury apparently was going to lose to Dillian White because apparently Dillian White was beating up Tyson Fury in sparring. That's all we heard about for that fight, AKHi TV. Isn't that what we heard? That Dillian White was beating Tyson Fury's ass, and that's why Fury wouldn't fight him because he was so afraid of him. But there was never any word about when Wilder clearly was not wanting to fight Dillian White. Isn't that the same standards? Or how come you're not keeping the same standards there, Mr. AKHi TV?
What's impressive about that when
Once again, with the LDBC and new media, what they love to do is the same thing as old media. It's just on the liberal side of things. Old media is a lot like the conservatives. They're not that great either, but there's probably no one as delusional and as insane as that of the liberal side of things. That's all these guys are.
Dillian White is not a top level heavyweight. He's not a top 5. Probably not.
He was once upon a time a top 5 level heavyweight, Mr. AKHi TV. That's why he beat Joseph Parker, Oscar Rivas, Derek Chisora, and some other guys. Dillian White was able to beat Joseph Parker, a dude that had already lost once in his career. Wilder ended up getting his ass beat against Joseph Parker, a guy overall that was knocked out just a year ago in brutal fashion. Tell me how that happens. Tell me overall how Dillian White was once upon a time not a top 5 heavyweight in the world, but he beats guys like Alexander Povetkin, Joseph Parker, Oscar Rivas, Derek Chisora. Tell me how that works.
Even a top 10 for real, for real.
But Joseph Parker, now that he defeated Deontay Wilder, is at the best point in his career than he's ever been. Like, get the fuck out of here.
For Shakur to say Fury beats Ali due to that, it ain't like Fury knocked out Usyk or Lennox Lewis for undisputed in an impressive fashion to the point where it makes you think of something like that. Absolutely not.
Well, then what that tells me, Mr. AKHi TV, is that you knew the level, or that overall that you really don't hold Deontay Wilder in as high as regard as what you were trying to state, or B, that when Deontay Wilder ended up losing, that you started not holding him in high regard to make it seem like Fury did not get that big of a win. Because when Deontay Wilder was undefeated and expected to beat that of Tyson Fury, he was a top 10 heavyweight of all time. He was greater than Mike Tyson, and he was a guy, overall that was a top 5 pound for pound fighter on your list. I did not forget any of that stuff. So how come all of a sudden the standards have changed so much?
That wasn't the case. Fury knocked out what a lot of people considered a bum, respectfully. How you come up?
Dillian White is not a bum. Now, is he a guy, once again, that, has the greatest of boxing ability? No, absolutely not. But he was a guy that was an A-grade level fighter for the heavyweight division. Let's stop.
With that conclusion, watching Fury knock out a bum. Come on, man. Now, to give Shakur the benefit of the doubt.
But Deontay Wilder, once again, top 5 pound for pound for literally defeating tomato cans. Artur Spilska, fucking Johan Duapis, Bermain Stavern. Like, come on, dude. Like, who the fuck is AKHi TV actually trying to fool here? I mean, he's fooling a lot of his idiot, dumbass fan base, but he's not fooling me.
He said, oh, well, it's the weight. Fury is so big. He's like 300 pounds and he has skills, this, that, and the third. But then he threw me off when they asked him, name a fighter who you believe could beat Fury, though, or has the best chance of beating Fury. And he named Holyfield, another cruiserweight just like Usyk. If Shakur want to tell us the reason why he believes Fury beats Ali is only because of his size advantage, then why will he pick Holyfield of all of the fighters to have the best chance of beating Fury, who is smaller than Muhammad Ali?
Well, instead of going once again by this puppet mentality, AKHi TV, which you pretty much string to, no pun intended, when it comes down to it, you should ask him instead of just criticizing him once again and calling him a coon and calling him a sellout.
Muhammad Ali is bigger than both Usyk and Holyfield. Remember, Muhammad Ali is 6'4". He's a natural heavyweight. In his prime, he was 210, 213. Later on, he was 225, 223, the weight he had on him, it was natural. And he was moving like a lightweight. However, he was punching like a heavyweight. That's why he always says fly like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Usyk, he's like what, 6'3"? Right now he's 220. For the majority part of his career, he was 200 pounds. So Muhammad Ali.
Right, but Oleksandr Usyk probably rehydrates somewhere at around 220, you idiot. But it, AKHi, like, there's no way this guy is actually serious with all this stuff. Like, AKHi TV, once again, this dude is such a dipshit for any boxing commentator that I've seen. And I've seen some stupid ass boxing commentators. Dante's Boxing Nation is up there. You know, some other, like, even Boxing Ego, even though I find him relatively intelligent. Boxing Ego can have some very stupid ass points. Champ Side can have some very stupid ass points. Timothy Bradley can have some very stupid ass points, as well as Teddy Atlas. I don't think I've ever seen, you know, even Southpaw 773. Like, I don't think I've ever seen someone as stupid in their commentary as that of AKHi TV. Like, this dude might be the biggest idiot that I've personally ever seen in terms of all sporting commentary. I mean, seriously, I mean, he's up there with fucking, who the hell is that one, Keyshawn Johnson, I believe, that one former receiver. Like, he's up there with him. Like, Jesus Christ.
Ali is bigger than Usyk. He's also bigger than Holyfield. The same guy Shakur said has the best chance of beating Tyson Fury. So clearly what Shakur said made zero sense. The things Shakur said doesn't add up.
Or maybe, once again, it's a little bit more nuanced than that, Mr. AKHi TV. Maybe it's because he believes that Evander Holyfield, that he has a better style overall for that of a Tyson Fury. But, you know, AKHi TV, once again, his mind doesn't go that deep in because he's an idiot.
Because if he would have had named Lennox Lewis, a guy who's naturally bigger than Muhammad Ali to beat Fury, then that would have had made more sense. But to pick a smaller fighter than Muhammad Ali, Holyfield, to be the one who has the best chance of beating Tyson Fury when Shakur was basing this solely on the weight makes zero sense.
Right, but he wasn't completely basing it solely off of the weight. He was basing it overall, you know, off of the weights and a little bit of the skills as well. But anyways, that's pretty much going to be about it for the video that I end up reviewing, because AKHi TV, he's pretty much a waste of air when it comes down to. But I just thought overall that I would review this video because, you know, once again, it goes to show you what their true motivations actually are. And once again, where are the videos talking about how great Oleksandr Usyk is? There's not one. Just like I told you guys, there's not one. You know, very interesting. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. I just thought that I would talk about that. Now, as for the question of is Oleksandr Usyk, how great is he? Well, it might be right now. He'd have to at least be right there with Crawford and Canelo, and probably Joe Calzaghe and Bernard Hopkins. He'd have to at least be with those guys, and Tommy Hearns, if not even slightly above some of those guys. I mean, Usyk, you could have a great debate right now. Is at the very least within the top 20 fighters of all time. You could have a legitimate debate about that, because he was able to do something that Evander Holyfield was not able to do. Could you imagine that if Evander Holyfield was able to beat the Lennox Lewis of his day? Someone overall that was looked at as a decently skilled heavyweight, and someone that was looked at as a decent amount bigger? That's what Oleksandr Usyk was able to do. And I know that some people might say that, well, Tyson Fury, I don't see him on that level. Well, listen, at the end of the day, you can state that all you want to. But at the end of the day, Lennox Lewis is a guy to where, keep in mind that he ended up getting chin-checked and lost overall to Oliver McCall and that of Hassan Rahman. Guys that really were not really truly A-grade level fighters. So once again, let's just not completely discredit Fury's career, and let's also not discredit the win that Usyk ended up getting over Tyson Fury. So keep that in mind. But anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. Thank you all so much for watching. We'll see where this goes. But as for the Usyk conversation, right now, to be honest with you, he'd be anywhere within my top 30 to top 20 fighters of all time. He definitely now has to be ranked above fighters over Mike Tyson. I don't even think that there's a doubt about that. He has to be ranked over certain fighters like Riddick Bowe, you know, and probably that of Evander Holyfield. And it's even a debate if he's above certain fighters like George Foreman. He's probably above certain fighters like Joe Frazier, at least on my all-time great list, you know, and a certain amount of other ones. The only guys that maybe I would not state that he's definitively greater than would be like Ali and Rocky Marciano, at least around those weight classes, to be quite honest with you. Usyk has to be counted as debatably right now the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world, which Crawford even himself has said. But you notice that none of these guys will mention that. They've been very silent about that. they've been very sure overall to not include that information because they know that that would be very damaging to their narrative in their case. But it is what it is. But yeah, Usyk has a great debate as one of the good. Not only is he for sure one of the greatest fighters of all time for right now, but also it's a debate about where. But it is what it is. Anyways, that's pretty much about it for today. But thank you all so much for watching. I'll talk to y'all later.